Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Grace Hour, our program that takes a dive into the believer's daily challenges and helps him or her to learn his or her faith in a practical way. My name is Matt Garrett, and I am joined here with the great Philippe Siraji in the studio. Today, we're going to be continuing the theme of the week, how do you date in a godly way? And our specific theme today, very timely, very pointed, is dating in 2022.
Yeah.
Now, I love that Philippe married for how many years?
22 years.
Married for 22 years, and myself married for almost 4 years. Are going to be talking to you guys about dating today because we have so much experience with this subject, but we are excited to talk about it, to bring the conversation to you, to get you to think a little bit about maybe what is going on in the dating world today and how you can pursue a godly relationship with a man or a woman. So maybe we just set a really quick boundary or foundation for the word dating that we're using today. We're thinking of dating as an intentional going after someone for the purpose of having this end goal in mind, probably marriage. But honestly, it's like any one of these relationships that you enter into can be a learning relationship. The main idea is that it's intentional, it is directed towards someone, and that there's like follow-up involved with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you ask people what they think about dating, everybody would have their own definition. Hence the idea for us to define what we mean by that. Because by this, and we'll address that throughout the show together. But the point is there's a lot of cultural aspects in dating. And that's, I think, and maybe we talked about this. You can talk about that a little bit. But there's two things that I think are very helpful to start the conversation. Number one is how culture influences the way we understand dating, and also how the world, in a negative sense, influences the way we understand our relationships.
Sure.
And I think the danger in both ways is to let both the world and the culture in which we are in dictate how we go about, developing relationships and dating, and that's certainly something that has a lot of bearing if we discuss dating in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about the U.S. today, or even maybe the broader West today, and you talk about dating, there's like maybe two or three places, or two or three means of people meeting each other in order to date. One of those is their social nightlife, whether it be a bar, a club, going out with friends, whatever it may be. It can be being introduced through your friends group, or it can be where you go and you spend like a majority of your time outside of the workplace. Yeah. Any one of these places is where people are looking for relationships on a consistent basis. We tend to stay away from the workplace relationship because of the awkwardness that could then ensue in that workplace when things don't work out. But what we're talking about when we're talking about dating today is like that's kind of the world's way of doing things. We want to bring in kind of a biblical background to dating. We want to bring in what it looks like to find someone who has a relationship with God, and that being your top priority, and maybe not going to those other places looking for it first. Yeah. Rather than even the confines of your own church could be a good start for where you're looking or how you're looking.
I think it's interesting because, Isaiah 55, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways, says the Lord. What's interesting about this is and I mean, you're the director of MBCNS. I'm directing the young adults ministry. So we deal with young people 24/7. And what's interesting is one of the questions that I have when I ask young people when they go through difficulties or even when they have, discussing a relationship, which happens sometimes, and I ask them the question, do you think God has something to say to you about this? And there's an intention behind the question, really, and he's asking, can you see more than yourself in that? Can you, if God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, that means that you and I naturally, just like anybody else, we don't have naturally access to the thoughts of God unless we pray, we ask God, we know the Word of God. So it's same thing in dating, and that's what we've been saying. Just interestingly, you can hear my French accent, so now I'm not from here. But I used for
really,
yeah, I know it's
wow.
a shock to everybody.
Holy
they wonder,
man.
I don't understand a word this guy is saying. Thank God we have the other one here. But The point is, so for the longest time, I used to, like maybe 25 years ago, I used to translate because I spoke both English and French. And this word dating was one of the hardest one for me to translate in French because we don't have an
You don't have
equivalent.
the word. Yeah.
And I realized, of course, like we say we have a word for this. It's kind of equivalent, but not really. And it tells me a lot about. And since we're talking about dating in 2022, and mostly for our young people here in America, is like you have to understand, number one, that dating is a very very cultural thing in America.
Yes.
So understand that, and then ask you the question: does God has anything to say about this? And that's what we've been here. We're going to be discussing here this morning.
Yeah, that's the hope, right?
Yes.
If you think about some different countries throughout the world, you have India, where arranged marriages are still very common. There is no dating of any kind. There is the parents say, "This is who you're going to marry," and you go through a courtship process, and maybe there's a dowry involved, and that's it. In third world countries, without the internet, without ways to stay connected on a regular basis, there's there's a meeting place where everyone is designated to go to.
Yeah.
In China, I was reading in an article in China, they have dating schools for men
Yeah.
because the men's population is so much higher than the women's that there's so little opportunity for men to initiate to someone. They actually herd them into these schools and teach them how to do it so that they can go find someone.
They have more chance.
Yeah, they have a better chance maybe of their words sticking with whoever they're approaching.
Yeah.
So there's many differences
Yeah.
depending on what culture you're speaking
Yeah.
about. But we want to tackle dating today, like dating here on maybe on our home turf, like in the way that I want to say this. I want to say dating actually starts with yourself. Dating starts with yourself, and dating starts with your relationship with God first. Before you ever even start looking for someone,
Right.
you have to start with yourself, and you have to ask yourself a couple questions. So like one of those questions I was thinking of that you can start with is before you even enter into the idea of a relationship with a girl is what's my motivation for seeking out that relationship. Now, I don't want to delve into that topic. I think that's actually one of the main points of tomorrow's broadcast. But just to ask the question, just to get started, what is my motivation for going out and looking for someone?
Yeah.
Am I lonely? Am I? Do I feel the need to be validated? Do I need someone else to accept me? Because all of these things that I'm asking right now, all of those things can be addressed in your relationship with God, and that needs to be worked on first before you're ready to go out and give someone else a part of you or insight into your own life and look for someone else to fill those things in your life.
And that we're not saying that, relationship like marriage is not used by God to fulfill some of our needs.
Oh, of course.
Of course,
Yeah.
what we're saying.
No.
But the thing is, if it's my main motivation to enter into a relationship, and like if you look at down the road, okay, it's funny. Like it's funny. Bertrand Russell, the famous atheist philosopher, has said that youth is wasted on the young.
Right.
And I found I found this very interesting because it means that you have to be old enough to be wise enough to use your youthfulness, but you're not.
Right.
And what's amazing about this is that, and I remember when I was younger, I made the same mistake that I'm seeing young people make today. And despite the fact I'm trying to guide them in some ways, they're gonna make the mistakes they're gonna make. That's the way it is. But the point here is that when you see like what Pastor Schaller would call, I think he read it somewhere, but he used it in his class, biblical psychology, deficit motivations.
Right.
Right? So a deficit motivation is a recipe for disaster in a marriage. So if I enter into a dating relationship with deficit motivations, meaning I'm looking for validation, as you said, or any other things, at some point they will put a strain on my marriage because either I grow and I become mature and that God can deal with me, or I can't, and I will never find satisfaction in my spouse, and then I will blame them for this, and there you have it, and then your relationship is destroyed. So when we talk about dating, we're not, and that's something I think young people need to understand, that when we're discussing dating, we're not trying to control their life. Oh, yeah, listen to us. We know what's best for you. Though it is a conversation we could have, I'd like to maybe go back to that at some point. What's amazing about this is, and we're not trying to control your life, we're trying to give you some guidance so you'll be able to make your own decisions properly.
Yeah. And if you think about this idea, have you ever heard of the term like consumerism?
Mhm.
It's very broad, right? It could go in many
Yeah.
different directions. But there's even like in the world, there's this idea of consumerism in the realm of dating.
Yes.
What can you give me
Yes.
in this relationship?
Yes.
And when we go out seeking for that, like this is okay, swipe right or swipe left
Yes.
on the dating apps. This is
There's your
okay.
2022.
There's dating in 2022, Tinder, okay, different Christian, different online meeting venues. I can't think of all the names of the apps. There are too many, and luckily I was already dating before those apps were like super popular, and I already found my wife. Praise God for that. But like the consumer mentality of what can you provide for me? What's the end goal in like a
Yes.
worldly relationship is, do you satisfy me at the end
Mhm.
of the night?
Mhm.
And that's for one night.
Yes.
It's okay, you provided that for me, and now you know what, I'm gonna swipe left and I'm gonna
Yeah.
get rid of you and I'm gonna move on
Yeah.
to the next thing and I'm gonna look for the next thing that satisfies me even greater or somehow different than the way you satisfied me.
I think we understand. I mean, loneliness is painful. We get that. I talk to people sometimes and I realize that I wouldn't want to find myself in their shoes. I
Mhm.
get that. And we're
Mhm.
not saying, okay, we understand, but that is also a deficit motivation. Being single can be a calling, but if it's not a calling and you feel like you're trying to get married and that's your main motivation, you may get a relationship, but you also may get the consumption of your heart that goes with it.
Right.
Because God cannot bless something that he won't bless something he can't bless.
Mhm.
That's basically But I like to go back to something we said earlier.
Sure.
It's, you spoke about the awkwardness. Sometimes like in a work relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that young people don't realize that we can see in our ministry is that the awkwardness that happens when you have some guys and some girls actually, what you could call, provocatively, I would say, serial daters. And
Yeah.
it's fine. Again, we're not saying this is a sin and whatever. We're just saying it's unwise.
Yeah.
And the main reason is I don't think you measure the awkwardness that happens in a relationship when you have a group of friends like in our church.
Mhm.
I've seen broken relationship when I was the director of the Bible college.
Sure.
And how now you have cliques. The friends of the girls are against the friends of the guys, and then
Yeah.
you have two groups. And I think this is so important when we're in a place where we want our relationships to be healthy. Now, if I'm entering in serial relationships just for the sake or motivated for the wrong reasons, and they ended up breaking, at some points, people are going to see me in the flesh like this. Oh, she's been dating so many guys. Oh, he's been dating so many guys. Oh, he broke her heart, or she broke his heart. And then that's how you see, because now I'm my friends as a loyal, I'm going to see these guys, these girls in the flesh. And that's very detrimental to any growth of anyone.
Yeah, and this goes back to the idea of like kind of counting the cost before you enter into some sort of relationship like this. If you don't count the cost beforehand, if you are not prepared, it says in the book of Proverbs, no man goes out. What does it say? Let's see. No man should go out to build. Maybe this is in the Gospels.
Yeah.
No man should go out to build something if he has not first checked to make sure that he has everything he needs in
Yes.
order to build that to have that building come to fruition.
Yeah.
Lest everyone look upon him and say, "Wow, how unwise was that man to start something but never finish it." So it goes back to this idea of what's your end goal for the relationship. Are you looking to grow with God, and are you looking for a helpmate? The Bible puts it that way. It's a helpmate in
Yeah.
Genesis chapter 2 and Genesis chapter 3. Eve was a helpmeet for Adam, meaning that she was going to come alongside Adam, be part of his everyday life, be part of his everyday ministry, and be 100% like they're cohesive. They're
Yeah.
together. They leave their father and their mother and they become one flesh. If that's not your end goal when you're going out to date, then you have to ask yourself, well, did I even count the cost? Do you know the baggage that you could be creating in
Yeah.
another person's life as
Yeah.
they enter into another relationship
Yes.
later on, or
Yeah.
even the baggage in your own life that
Yeah.
you take into your relationships? That's
Right.
like a big question.
It is. I think it's interesting because one of the things that I do bring up in conversation sometimes when people had relationships and they broke up, to use a term, it's that the number of things they know about the other person that is marriage level, like your childhood trauma,
Sure.
and then and I'm thinking, what's as the young people say, the TMI, right? Too much information.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like, really? And now, how safe do you think you are in thinking the person you broke up with won't be sharing your secrets?
Mhm.
And that's the point I was making, is like the awkwardness adds to, and we go back to the idea of culture at the beginning. Because we are led by culture in doing dating a certain way, we could end up using feeling free in our culture to gossip as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds like we are painting a dreadful picture, but we're just giving
This really happens.
it does,
Yeah,
and
this
it's
really
it's kind of it's interesting warning. It's just to realize that, okay, well, I like the word intentional. I think it's a very good word that I like to use, and I use that for discipleship. But I use that a lot in my personal life. When I want to do things, I can think ahead, try to make, and it's not calculated, which is different. Calculated is because I have an agenda.
Yes.
But intentional meaning I'm doing things to be properly understood, and to be, if like Pastor Charles spoke of the, staff meeting this morning, it was interesting. He spoke about in preaching we have warmth.
Yeah.
And you have to be intentional in that. And I think this is exactly what we're talking about. Like if you want your life to be successful, because this is what people want, then think intentionally.
Right.
Think about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Look for God, find Him, look for His thoughts, and let His thoughts replace your thoughts.
Yes,
Yes.
100%. And in that same vein of intentionality, you also have like a direction or maybe characteristics that
Yeah.
you're looking for in this person that you may or may not be pursuing.
Yeah.
Do they have a relationship with God? That's like an intentional question in
Yeah.
your mind. Do they have a relationship with God? Not only do they have the relationship, but can you see it? Like,
Yes.
can you see it? Okay, we are not judges. We
No.
do not look at people based on their fruit and say,
Yeah.
this is who you are, this is what you do.
Mhm.
But if you are looking for someone to spend the rest of your life with,
Yeah.
you need to think about that ahead of time. Do they have a walk with God? Is it real?
Yes.
Does it affect their relationships with people around
Yes.
them in a
Yes.
positive way? Because if it doesn't, if they're very argumentative, if they're very kind of like snap to anger or quick to this or that emotion, like that's something that you'll end up having to
Yes.
take on
Yeah.
yourself if you pursue that person.
Yeah, like you're saying, we're not judging, and it's true. We're not looking at, but the Bible does say like we recognize a tree by its fruits.
Yes.
So the point you're making, I think I like it. It's like people would say, oh, do you like what you see? Like could be on the swipe right, swipe left. You like the face, you like the characteristics.
Yeah.
But also as Christians, we could ask the question, do I like what I see spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like that? And my wife has, she has this habit of asking questions to girls, because it's a whole different, like, I don't think you and I are really capable of understanding, dating, as a girl, because we're not. But I mean,
I have
we
no
also
idea.
we
No
can also
idea.
we can see the shortcomings of guys. But the one thing she asked, she asks them every time is that, do you like what you see in that person when they are around the body?
Yes.
Do you see service?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see love?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you see something else you wouldn't like? Because what you'll see in the body will help you determine what kind of guy you're dating with. And I think it's very good. I think it do, and which takes us to another very practical point, I think, about dating. Like, I'm going to broaden that a little bit.
Sure.
If you know history, you realize that the way we understand the culture in the Western world today is very much impacted by what we call back in the day Romanticism,
Mm-hmm.
which was built in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
So we like it because it's cool. We have our movies and everything, but it's very much cultural.
Yes.
And it's interesting because there's this show in France that we watched it before we moved here, so it was years ago. It's some kind of, not reality TV, but some kind of a celebrity that will go into a remote people somewhere and spend a week there to learn their. So they have this lady. She's a very famous French actress, very feminist. And she was taken to a tribe somewhere in Africa. I think it was Kenya. Completely remote. They have their own culture in the small village. And one thing they do is that their marriage is arranged by the parents. So she's completely appalled by the idea. And then at the end of the week, she speaks, on the camera, and she says, "I've learned some things I never thought I would be surprised by. And number one is I didn't think arranged marriage would work."
Mm-hmm.
So as a feminist, it was very interesting. And the other thing she said is that when they go through difficulties, they don't even question their marriage because they can't. So they work it out.
Yeah.
And I found for a feminist, it was such an amazing statement.
Wow.
Because she realizes that maybe the way we do things, I think she was married 3 times. And maybe the way we do things is based on a culture. I'm not saying that we should go back to arranged marriage, but I'm just saying the reason why it's been working for many, many generations and many culture is because the parents have wisdom that the children don't have.
Very
And then,
interesting.
so that's,
yeah.
if we translate that principle, not into arranged marriage, but the fact, okay, I do have parents, I have authorities, I have people that care for me, that are my advisors. Maybe I should listen a little bit.
Sure.
Not who to marry, but some guidance.
Right. I mean, we heard that proverb today. We heard that proverb this weekend also. It's Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 14. And it says, where there is no counsel, the people fall.
Yes.
But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. The people who have gone before us, they have gone through experiences.
Yeah.
They've gone through the highs, the lows. They have something to contribute. Should those people be like butting in on a daily basis and offering things whenever no one comes to them and asks them for it?
Nope.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But is there wisdom in seeking out someone to talk to about things you're unsure about? Yeah, 100%. Do you have like a covering in your relationship? That's extremely important dating in 2022. You meet someone online. Okay, this is very common today. You meet someone online. And your relationship starts out maybe as just like some communication because you guys are from different parts of the country or different parts of the world. And it's just communication based to start. So at what point, whenever you guys eventually like come to meet face to face, at what point do you decide this is serious enough where it would be helpful if I knew someone who had gone through something similar to this?
Yeah, I think it's which takes us to another thing that I found with young people. I don't know if you observe that. And again, we're not looking down at young people. You are very much involved. I'm very much involved because we out of love.
Yes.
Not out of, okay, we got this.
No, I'm
this
not here to
power
clean
and
up anybody's mess.
No.
I'm here to help them if they want.
Yeah, whatever
that's it.
decisions you make is between you and God. And once you make a decision, we're there to support you completely. So it's not like, okay, you're going to get married. And I believe in marriage so much. Even if I think the relationship was not a good one, once you're married, I respect that with every fiber of my being.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be in the side of anyone's marriage.
Right.
So I'm going to do everything I can. So we're not talking about that.
Sure.
But the point is it's what I call peer counseling, right? So if you take any counseling class, you'll know quickly that even professionals will tell you the vast majority of efficient counseling comes from some friends, not professional counselors, because we receive the counseling from others with love, which is very, very good. Like your friends will give you some counsel, they'll love you, you'll take them from a different angle. This guy, I'm paying for him. Over here, my friend says something. So they actually say if you are surrounded with great people, the vast majority of efficient counseling will come from peers, from friends, not peers. Now, if you take that with young people today, and Françoise and I, my wife, we had a conversation with a young person not too long ago. And I asked that, she came over for dinner. We had a really good conversations, very wise actually. And she was saying, well, it's like she finds herself in the position where a lot of our young people come to her and ask, because she's very good at listening, and she's really wise for a young person. So we were listening, and then I said, well, I'm not taking anything away from you, but why do you think young people go to young people for advice that don't go to authorities in the church or people that care for them that are older?
Yeah.
And she was as surprised as we were. And I think it's something that we can say now. The point is, if you come to us or anyone that is, in leadership responsibilities that love you, and you will know that the only thing you'll get is carefully thought, intentionally said advice. I'm not interested. You're not interested. I don't know anyone around me on the staff here that is interested in controlling your life.
Right.
Because that's too much responsibility.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. But the thing is, don't trap yourself into just a completely 100% peer counseling situation where you listen to your friends. Because sometimes I hear people, and I remember when you and I worked together at MBCNS, we had a few situations where we had to talk to a couple guys. You need to stay out of this.
Yeah.
We had this one guy is 18, 19-year-old giving marriage counseling, and he has not even been dating one day in his life.
Right.
But the point is, that is dangerous at some point because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking of, actually, maybe here we got a question from Joe online. It says, "What do you think of long distance relationships?" I think that's way more common nowadays. I think with the pandemic, maybe that actually has become even more of a thing. Whenever people were just kind of stuck inside all the time, they didn't necessarily care where the person was located, just as long as they had someone to talk to, someone to connect with. And I think the premise of a long distance relationship actually has a healthier start to it than one whenever you are face to face all the time, when the physical temptation is right there and present all the time. I think it could be a good way to start.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of this, Philippe? You have this idea of like starting a relationship online, but do you live your relationship online? Like, should every part of your relationship just be like open for everyone to see on the
No.
internet, and the long distance side of things? How do you manage that?
Well, I think if by this, then Joe means like a completely 100% distance relationship,
Mhm.
the answer is no.
Okay,
It doesn't work.
sure.
Now, if we think of how your story, what I know about it, and mine is similar in one way that both our wives, when we were dating, we were separated for months.
Yeah.
6 or 8 months for me, and,
Four for us.
for
Yeah.
you for 4.
Yeah.
And when you came back, you got engaged.
Yeah.
So I think it was beneficial in your life. It was beneficial in my life. It was beneficial in both of our lives.
Mhm.
So maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So let me just a little backstory. Jamil and I met in Bible college.
Mhm.
She was around for maybe 6 months before I ever even like had the guts to approach her. Okay. I had been through some like crappy experiences myself, and I was at that point with God where I'm like, all right, God, either you got to do it, or I'm done trying. It's not going to happen. So we get together, we start to talk, we go to a missions banquet together. We're surrounded by a bunch of people. We have a great time, and we really hit it off. And we think, oh, this could be something. So even after that, we give it a couple months, and we have our first official date, like at a baseball game, Yankees Orioles baseball game. I'm a baseball guy. My wife, it turns out, knew absolutely nothing about baseball.
Well, she's
Had
not
no
American,
idea, had no idea what was going on. But she was along for the ride. We had a great time. A year later, fast forward a year
Yeah.
later. Let's make this quick, Pastor Matt. Okay, a year later, I'm going to the mission field. I'm going to Malawi to spend time for my practicum with the Armins in Africa. So that's 4 months of time separated from each other.
Yeah.
We would communicate occasionally, but the internet was like a real hindrance there, and it's hard to stay connected.
Yes.
But that time apart, for me and for her, we really got to search some things out in our own hearts. We really got to search out what our motivations were, whether or not we like were depending on each other,
Yes.
and if this was the right fit. Like we started to have those conversations when I was away of, hey, would you think about this idea of marriage as the possibility of the end result of this relationship we're in? And it caused tension. It made things hard. It made things like difficult for both of us while we were away. But ultimately, I think it really brought us closer
Yeah.
together in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did get engaged on the way you returned, though.
But as
At the
soon
airport.
as soon as I got back, I landed in Dulles. I bought a ring in South Africa, and I asked her. She the entire time. This is the best part of the story in my opinion. The entire time I'm proposing to her, I'm down on one knee in Dulles Airport, right outside the international arrivals section. She goes, "You're not doing this here. You are not doing this here. You are not." Everything I said, she has no idea what I said to this day.
But
No
she-
idea. She just heard me say. I just heard her say, "You are not doing this here."
But she did say yes.
But she did say yes.
There you go. So,
Whew.
yeah. So I mean, that's maybe how we can address that. The long term. I mean, one thing that my wife said, after we got married was very interesting, and she said the morning of our wedding, you know what she prayed for? She prayed to God, if it's not from you, you got to stop this today. I think this is amazing.
Wow.
Because we get so emotionally involved in things that, okay, I got my friends, I got the invites, everything's going on. I'm not questioning anything. You should, as long as you're not married, you can question your relationship. Not questioning in the wrong way. Oh my God, but questioning and putting before God as on the altar, as we would say.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you can. You're engaged. Doesn't matter. Like you search God, find God. And then this is very, very important, because if it's funniest thing, what people look in dating is the Prince Charming or the Princess Charming. There's whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to have a beautiful marriage and family and children and grandchildren. If this is what you want, the dating part is the most efficient way to succeed in that.
Yeah.
Because this is the time before you get engaged. Because once you're married, you're married.
It's like the testing ground.
It is.
I think of 1 Corinthians 13, and we all know this chapter. We all
Yeah.
love this chapter. But if you're going through a relationship with someone and you're trying to figure out whether or not this is from God and this is you loving this person,
Yeah.
then you really need to look at verses 4-8
Yeah.
and consider the characteristics of love, and consider, are those manifesting in your relationship? Do you have patience for the person that you're with?
Mhm.
Do you have kindness towards them? Are you seeking your own thing, or are
Mhm.
you seeking their things?
Yeah.
If you don't test this out, if you don't check to see if this is
Yeah.
true, it's like Jesus, when the disciples come to him and say, "Hey, where do you lay your head?" He goes, "Hey, come and see."
Come and see.
Like, come and see.
Mhm.
Come, like, go to God with it and see, Lord, is this right? Is this from you?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's an extremely important question.
Yes, it is. And also, it takes us maybe to one of the part of our conversation could be that, like, what are we looking for in a spouse?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what I'm we kind of spoke about that when we said that when we do date in the body of Christ, how it affects the way we see each other, relate to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also something and maybe a parenthesis at this point that I just want to make sure that people understand what we're saying. Like, we're both married, and we're super pro marriage.
Yes.
Like, this is the
100%.
most beautiful thing.
Go for it.
Yes, I mean, like, this would transform your life, and as men, this is exactly what we need because we are complete lunatics
Mhm.
without some kind of accountability in our lives. So, I mean, and I love my wife like I don't love, I love her more than I ever did. And when she's traveling, I am the most miserable guy there is on the planet.
Mhm.
So there is a dependency. There is something that happens that it's such a great way to live. We're excited to see each other. After a day, it's a beautiful relationship. And then what we're trying to say, I think, is we want what God blessed us with. This is what we want for you.
Yes.
But also, this comes with a price, which is
Mhm.
I've got to be intentional.
Mhm.
And sometimes, like if I'm in Bible college or if I'm in university, it's funny how sometimes when we used to tell people, hey, if you can wait until you're done with Bible college to be dating, oh, wow, are you kidding me? But then those who go to university and have a lawyer degree or a medical degree, they don't get married. They don't get in any long-term relationship
Mm-mm.
So they sacrifice their career,
Yeah.
their relationship for their careers. That means I could also sacrifice some of the serial dating that I'm tempted by just because I have other plans for my life. I really want my life to be guided intentionally. That's also something very important. So I just wanted to put that parenthesis
Yeah.
out there.
No, that's great. I love it.
Yeah. So what are we looking into a spouse?
What are we looking
Yeah.
for in a spouse?
In 2022?
In 2022.
Because we've got to wrap this up. With 2022.
We're looking for maybe the word is genuineness. We're looking
Yes.
for realness.
Yes.
Maybe not complete 100% transparency early on, but
Yes.
we're looking for someone that we can trust.
Yes.
Right? Not someone who hides behind a veil, not someone who hides behind like a face mask of everything's
Yes.
all right all the time. It's like, no, like I want to be there for you, and I want you to be able to be there for me. And getting into the nitty gritty of our emotions is
Yeah.
is a real big part of that.
Yeah.
So we're looking for genuineness, realness, godliness. We already said
Mhm.
godliness. We're looking for someone with that real relationship. What do you think? What are we looking for today?
Well, I'm also thinking we look back and wondering, as I said, as dudes, like we need really the accountability. And I think something that I find difficult to bring into relationships because you're afraid of losing it is genuineness in conversations. Like if I want, we're not trying to change each other. Like if you're thinking
Yes.
you're gonna marry someone and change them because you don't like something, good luck with that.
Yes.
That's not gonna happen, and
Be
that's
working
gonna
on that for the rest of your life.
well, yes,
Yep.
and it's going to be put a strain in your relationship and
Mhm.
your marriage. You don't want that. It's going to put a strain on your children because they obviously think that mom or dad or either or don't like the other one the way that's not going to be
Mhm.
helpful. But on the other hand, what I do want is to be able to I want to be able to see something in a conversation that happens with the person I'm dating seriously because I'm really thinking maybe there is something there. And can we have an honest and difficult conversation?
Mhm.
And that's what I'm also looking for. Like, am I looking for? We say we don't want to be surrounded by yes people,
Yeah.
but you
Yep.
don't want a yes person into your marriage either.
Hmm. Yeah. You got to have that common ground. You
Mhm.
got to have the common ground of Christ as your Savior. How can you have those difficult conversations with each other if you don't also have this idea? There's another proverb that says, hatred stirs up strifes,
Mhm.
but love covers a multitude of sins.
Mhm.
How can you have that honest, real conversation with someone if you both don't know the covering power of grace that
Mhm.
Christ has given to both of us as
Yeah.
humans? Like we know going into a relationship, or we know in our marriages today, we know that we are both humans and we are both failures,
Mhm.
and we will fail over and over again.
Yeah.
But we also know that we have Jesus Christ as our middle ground, as the person that we both come to, and we can say,
Yes.
okay, Christ, your forgiveness is way bigger than any failure that we have. And we go to that table together, and we have that back and forth with each other, with that as our basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like maybe I'd like to say something to the girls, like in one way, like it's okay. So put that into context. I think guys, when they get married, they get the wrong sense of I'm the man in the house, and that means I'm going to be a macho.
Yep.
So yes, you're not the man of the house; you're the head of the house.
Yes.
That's
way
very
different. Way different.
Has nothing to do with this. So the head of the house is someone that has a servant leader, as laid down in the Bible. So, and I, like 3 or 4 years ago, I was asked to speak at the marriage retreat, for, and I said,
I was there.
I said to people, well, yeah, I said, I learned more from my wife that I learned from anybody else in my life, in my spiritual life, because she knows who I am. She knows my tendencies, and not that she sees me in the flesh, but she can see patterns and she can address that because she loves me and I love her. We can work things out. But the things that I see, and we have at November, we have a young adults marriage retreat for those who've been married 3 or 4 years and less.
Yeah, we were disqualified.
So, I know
Thank
you're disqualified.
You so
Sorry
much.
about that. Yeah, next time.
Yeah, it's okay.
But the point is, and one thing we want to discuss in the conversation is the adaptation after you get married. And one thing that I found difficult for guys and girls is the guys get into macho mode and the girls get into a submissive mode in the wrong way. And what I mean by that is, if you cannot have, as a girl, if you date someone, that could be one of the red flags we want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
If you cannot have your walk with God, if you're shut down because he's the man in a relationship, then this is not the right guy for you. Very simple. Because very basically what's going to happen is guys will become the believer priest for both in the marriage. And that is completely anti-biblical. And if this is happening once you're dating and once you're engaged, something is wrong in his understanding. So hence the idea of having these strong conversations.
Yeah.
Like we're equal.
Yes.
Like we're equal. And we're making, look, I'll give you an example. My wife and I, we both grew up in small towns, village, mountain area, so we love we love that surrounding. And then, so I left I was director of the Bible College in Southern France, and was in between. There were 3 possibilities, and one of them was to go to Paris to work in the church and become the director of the Bible College there.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, oh, Paris, I don't like it, So I'm thinking, okay. So I went for 1 year. I commuted to Paris every week.
Yeah.
3 days in Paris, 4 days in the south every week. And she came with me a few times. And at the end, I'm thinking, you know what? I really believe this is God's will. And she's like, man, I don't know about this. But she's spiritual, So how about we make a deal? We go there for 6 months. We move. If you can't live there, I was wrong. And I was not from God because he didn't give you the grace.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I said, okay, let's do this. We moved and we left there for 10 years. She loved it. And when we left Paris, she was crying.
And the difference here in what you're talking about is that's what can happen in a marriage relationship.
Yes.
When you're dating, you are not at that place yet.
No, you're not.
You are figuring out, is this a person, guy or girl, is this a person I can submit to in my life? It says in Ephesians chapter 5, we know these verses, Philippe, but let's just read them anyway. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 through 24, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. So that's reciprocal, submitting yourselves to one another in the fear of God. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands and everything. So you said what you said to the ladies. I want to say one thing to the guys, is if you're going to be the head of a relationship, the way that Christ is the head of the church, do you understand what that actually entails? Sacrificial love. There is no greater love than this, that a man would lay down his life for his friends, John chapter 15. That's the kind of submitting we're talking about. You submitting to your own wife, to her needs. It says in maybe 1st or 2nd Peter, like honoring her for the way that she is, the different things that are going on in her life, and understanding and connecting with her. Can you sacrifice your own agenda, your own thoughts, your own decisions, your own goals, everything for her, for the betterment of you two together as one flesh one day?
Yes.
You have to ask yourself that question before you ever even enter into the marriage relationship. And the same for the ladies. They have to ask themselves the question, can I even submit to this person?
Yeah.
Is the godliness in them speaking to me? If it's not, like, it's okay to break it off.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with breaking
Yeah.
up. It's healthy in a sense whenever you recognize something from God and you respond to God.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you don't like something in the dating time in the relationship and you can't live with it,
And you can't talk about it.
drop it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. I mean, so that which goes back to a question we have: should a man or woman wait until they are financially set, like job, house, etc., to look for a serious relationship? The answer is no. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know what you think. And the basic idea, I'm not challenging the idea of you be serious.
Yeah.
We are serious. I'm
Yeah.
saying, like, if you think this is the way God wants us to make decisions,
Right.
then we don't live by
We
faith.
have to have all of our ducks in a row
No,
before
we
we
don't.
enter into something. None of us would be walking with God today
No.
if we had all of our ducks
And
in
I
a row.
I don't know if I would still be married today because I would still be waiting for it to be,
We're still trying to get financially
mature
set. We're
enough.
still trying to become
Right?
mature enough.
Yes.
We're still trying to
I
be the
need to be
person
ready,
that our wife
you
wants
know.
us to be.
No.
No.
Yeah. No, we have a few more minutes. I just wanted to say a couple things that we have time
Sure.
maybe to discuss about some red flags.
Yeah.
And I think this is good because, okay, so if we go back to the, because we want our producer to be happy, you know, like,
Of course.
we want to keep this job. This is very good for us.
Thank God for Sebastian.
So the question that also like dating in 2022, and I think the main point we made compared to before is the idea is like you've got to be careful. It's true in every time. It's true in every instances. But the danger of this particular time we're living in is that it's very easy for us to lose track of the intentionality in everything we do as Christians because the world is surrounding us. We have so many opportunities. Just like in one way that when we teach the Bible, you know, like we have to be very thorough in our teaching because there is a lot more resources out there for people to hear some other voices, which is fine as long as you. So it's the same with, you know, like so many ways to watch movies and series and all these things and have other, you know, read books and have access, which is also not a problem, but you have to be able to understand that this represents a bigger challenge for us not to be influenced by our culture. And that was not the case years and years ago, as you said, you know, in some places, like you went to Africa, you know, access to internet was an issue. So
Yeah. And you think about the way that everything is now broadcast, like even our show today is being broadcast live and then it's sent out for anyone in the world to access if they have the capability to access Spotify or Apple Music or any of these things. The same thing with relationships, the way that they used to take place was probably much more private at one point.
Yes.
And now everything
It's all over the
is
place.
out there for people to see and to judge and to make comment on and to kind of like put themselves in the other person's shoes. But you have to do this. If you're going to date anyone, you have to do it before God.
Yeah.
It has to be before God. You're not pleasing men, you're pleasing God. And that's to say that you yourself are submitting to God too. That includes the way that you interact with with the person that you're dating when it comes to physical touch, when it comes to honoring their wishes, their bodies, all of that stuff.
Yes.
It has to be before God first. If you're not ready for that, then maybe you're not ready to date.
Yes.
We hope you are, and we want it. We want everyone to find the person that God has for them. But you have to count the cost.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And I think what we're saying basically is like there's two ways to understand what we're saying is it's a big stop sign, or it's not. It's a warning sign.
Yeah.
Hey, you're entering
yield.
into a great road here,
Yeah.
but these are some rules to help you find your way.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you get to the end of that road, we want you to be successful. That's what we want to do.
100%.
I don't know. Do we have time to cover a couple of red flags, or what do you think? Or we should move on?
Yeah,
Yes, we
no,
do.
let's do
All right.
it.
Okay, so one thing that I see in a relationship is then when you find yourself, and I see that with girls more than guys, because girls most of the time the girls' deficit motivation to enter in a relationship will be to be loved, and they're willing to sacrifice a lot of what they are to be loved. And I think this is something very dangerous. And I think if you're forced into change, then that is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
If someone is convincing you that that you need to change, or that you find yourself different, and your friends come to you and tell you there's something different about you, that should be a flag.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
I think on the guys' side of things, and I mean this could go either way, guys or girls. If you find yourself when you are hanging out with this person, that you just want to be closer and closer, and physical touch becomes like a real issue,
Yes.
then that's a huge red flag.
It is.
You have to think about like what all that entails once physical touch starts to take place,
Yes.
because there's a whole snowball effect to that.
Yes, there is. And if you see anything like, manipulation,
Mm.
anger,
Mhm.
or
Yep.
separation from your friends or your family,
Yeah.
or things like this,
Yeah.
or if you don't see anything spiritual in that relationship, then these are your red flags right
Yeah.
there.
Are you isolating yourself for
Yes.
the sake of this other person?
Yes.
That's a no go.
Yeah.
A no go.
And we see that. It's funny because I said that one day to someone. I said, it's funny. Like, I'm not a specialist, but I've seen, and I've read enough on, like relationships that are abusive.
Mm-hmm.
These are the same kind.
Mm.
The abusive relationship have the same pattern and some of the dating relationships that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
That means that if this is seen in a dating relationship, you down the road, this is an abusive relationship.
Wow.
Because what guys do when they beat their wife, they're trying to convince them that they love them despite the fact that, and then the family don't understand them. So they
Yes.
separate their friends and their family. And I've seen that in a couple of relationships in dating, and that really freaks me out.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Man, dating in 2022. Let's end on a positive note. Let's not talk about the
Yeah.
abusive results of relationships. Dating in 2022.
Oh, well, we chose to finish with red flags. That was a bad idea.
You can find these relationships online. Okay,
Yes.
not a bad place to start. It is possible. It does happen. People do get married. They live long, happy lives together.
Mm-hmm.
You can also start in your church. You can start in your young adults group. You can start
Yes.
in Bible college. Don't let it be the first thing you're thinking about in Bible college, but you can start it in Bible
can.
college. We are for you. We are not against you. We are here to help you and counsel you if that's your choice, that's your decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, dating is a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great learning tool given to us by God to help us learn to be servants,
Yeah.
to learn to submit, to learn to be gracious, to learn to love.
Can we say, I think maybe we could say that the word intentional kind of sums it up, right?
Intentional is the word.
Be thoughtful and intentional in your relationship.
Absolutely,
That's
100%.
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Hey,
Right.
guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Philippe, anything you want to leave them with other than intentional?
That's the good
Intentional.
word.
We're leaving them with
intentional.
intentional. All right, hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Don't forget, please subscribe. Hit the like button as you're listening. If you're going to send in questions, please make sure they're on topic. We love to hear from you guys. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Please be sure to join us for our next show tomorrow as we continue talking about dating.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
See you guys.